This story was sent to me by Caressa McKnight, and it's coming out of Baltimore. And in case y'all don't know who this is Marilyn Mosby, as you know, is the Baltimore prosecutor. And this story right here is going to show now more than ever why Baltimore is one of the leading places where there is police corruption in these departments. So, according to this article coming from the Baltimore Sun, it said that Marilyn Mosby listed 25 police officers as completely discredited. And because of that, prosecutors have now begun wiping out 790 convictions. Now, mind you, that's just from 25 police officers. 25. A quarter of 100. And out of that 25, 790 convictions have to be wiped out just from 25 cops. Corrupt, crooked cops. And y'all wonder why the Baltimore was leading as far as when they had to do investigations for different departments, why they were leading in corruptions. And people like to say that all this crime happens in Baltimore and stuff like that with black people, but they'll never talk about something like this. They will not touch this with a 10-foot pole. Now, let me go ahead and get into it. It says Baltimore State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby has begun asking the courts to throw out nearly 800 criminal cases handled by 25 city police officers, saying she found reason to distrust more than a dozen cops in addition to the 8 convicted in the gun trace task force scandal. These additional officers had not previously been disclosed by her office. 3 of them remain with the Baltimore police. The 3 are Robert Hankard, a detective in Central Baltimore, Kenneth Ivory, a sergeant in Southwest Baltimore, and Jason Giordano, a sergeant in the city robbery unit. Hankard has been suspended. They did not respond to a message to the department. The number of officers involved fluctuates as her office continues to investigate. Mosby said on Friday, while clarifying that the total number of officers is 25, not the 22 in the initial release. Mosby said her office's assessment of cases is not over. This is just the first phase, and that more cases could be dismissed as her attorneys gather more information. She said that all of the names her office released this week are included in court filings by her attorneys to vacate nearly 800 cases handled by the tainted officers. At least 7 other unnamed officers are connected to the dismissed cases. Mosby declined to identify them, saying they remain under federal investigation. She directed questions to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Baltimore. A spokeswoman there declined to comment. At least 10 officers cited have resigned. 1 retired and 1 was fired. 1 other officer, Detective Sean Suter, was shot to death nearly 2 years ago in West Baltimore. Most of these men have not been charged with a crime, but nearly all were named in testimony during the federal gun trace task force trial. Mosby said her office has no choice. The integrity of their cases is compromised. Mosby's office said it draws no distinction between the 8 convicted officers and the rest. When you have sworn police officers involved in egregious and long-standing criminal activities such as planting guns and drugs, which we have seen, because I remember seeing a video on that. It was either last year or 2 years ago where you had one of those cops planting drugs somewhere, and the idiot didn't even know his body camera was on. He just turned the volume off thinking he turned the actual camera off, and we actually saw him put the drug somewhere and plant it. They said stealing drugs, making money, selling drugs, making illegal arrests, and bringing false charges are legal and ethical obligation in the pursuit of justice leaves us no other recourse but to right the wrongs of unjust convictions associated with corrupt police officers. Prosecutors began asking the courts this week to undo nearly 800 convictions that hinge on investigations by or testimony from these 25 officers. 8 of the 25 are former members of the gun squad who were convicted of racketeering crimes and sentenced to federal prison for terms ranging from 7 to 25 years. 7 of those task force members accepted plea deals. 2 were convicted at trial. During the trial, the officers testified about their crimes and implicated other cops who have not been charged. They admitted to stealing money from citizens, lying on paperwork, and bilking the city for unearned overtime pay. Some even claimed overtime for hours they spent on vacation. The scandal continues to reverberate across the city. Mosby's office launched an exhaustive effort to review thousands of arrests made by the Rogue Squad and those implicated at trial. Prosecutors began filing papers this week asking the courts to throw out the tainted cases. She says her office found 790 cases to be compromised. Lawyer plan to file papers in 200 cases a week. A judge will consider their request to erase the bad convictions after 30 days. These hearings will be held each afternoon. I know that's going to drive them crazy, but that's why they labeled this as exhaustive, because they are going to be in dire need of a vacation, probably somewhere exotic after all of this. It is still very early in the process, and we are hopeful for the swift vacatur of all the many tainted convictions, said Melissa Rothstein, spokeswoman for the Office of Public Defender in Baltimore. Included in the 25 officers is former Detective John Clewell. The lone member of the gun trace task force has not been charged with a crime. Clewell has maintained he took no part in the squad's crimes. The list also mentions former officers Michael Sylvester, Tariq Edwards, and Matthew Rickman. They have also not been charged. The 3 men resigned from the department and could not be reached for comment. 2 others on the list, retired Sergeant Keith Gladstone, Detective Carmine Vignola, have admitted to a scheme to plant a BB gun to cover up for the leader of the gun squad. Both men pleaded guilty in federal court and await sentencing. Gladstone faces as much as 10 years, Vignola 5 years. Federal prosecutors have not given indication how far the scandal will reach. Last year, Mosley pushed the legislature to expand her authority to erase the tainted cases. Police corruption is a hindrance to public safety, puts the lives of hardworking and dedicated officers at risk, and limits our ability as prosecutors to deliver justice. Mosby partnered with Eric Barron, a Prince George's County Democrat and former prosecutor, to back a state bill granting her authority to vacate the old convictions. Judges have been denying such motions on the grounds that there was no legal basis for a prosecutor to make such a request. Mosby told state lawmakers that this legal hurdle hindered efforts to right the wrongs of the gun trace task force. The General Assembly passed the bill last session, and the new law took effect on October 1st. Mosby says her office filed motions in 79 cases that first day. Now, public defenders are praising her efforts. Meanwhile, city solicitor Andre Davis has expressed concern that the city will face an onslaught of lawsuits from defendants in the cases. More than a dozen people have already sued, and dozens more have given notice with their intent to sue. City officials are bracing for payouts that could cost tens of millions of dollars. Well, guess what? If they weren't being so dirty and so filthy, they wouldn't be in this position right now. This right here, what she's doing, is probably why many of them don't want her to be in that position, because she's unearthing a lot of their dirty deeds. I mean, think about it. 25 officers. And because of them, they will have to throw out 790 convictions just on 25. That's almost 800, but it's literally rounded up almost 1,000 convictions. Like, that is crazy. Y'all cannot tell me that the city of Baltimore's police departments are not corrupt. I've been saying that for a while now, and it looks like it holds true. But guess what? Baltimore is not the only department in the establishment that operates like that. It's plenty more that are like that, and possibly even worse. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments, and I'll talk to you in the next one.